We actually got to page, let me see this here, Kuf Kaf Gimel, or Kuf, yeah, Kuf Kaf Gimel. Let me get my, okay, and here we go at the bottom of this page. Now, this actually started a piece which is called His Kalulus Apartsufim B'Yud, and the letter Yud, how in all of these. So these are what we're going to see here, I think, is material that we have seen in other ways, but it's a little bit thick. So Dochazi, come and see, he says. De Ikre Av. Now we had this thing called the Father. So this thing which is called the Father, Zehareshis Hanikra Av, the beginning is called the Father. For who parts of Abba. Shehud Chilach Bekol Netzal, and that's the beginning of all things which are called Netzal. In other words, they're near the Ein Sof. Because through this, our distance out, it made all the partsuvim shematachtav. Bekoich or Ein Sof mislavish, but from the power that Ein Sof, that koich, that's the energy. Iskalil b'yud, all of this, he says, all of what we're going to find out of that means, I think he's talking about the lower worlds that come out of the yud. All of it comes from the letter Yud, the Tzal Mazel Kadisha, which is really hanging on this Mazel Kadisha that we talked about. Nichlal Ba'os Yud, Hataluya Mazel Kodesh Al Dikna de Erikanpin, which is this letter Yud, is all, he says, what? Is dependent on this Mazel. Vuha Mazel Shal Tika Nashmini. So now, we were originally talking about this Rav Chesed. Now we move back to the mazel that we normally talk about, which is the eighth mazel. So Elef, let me see where is it. Hashmini. Shabo Nirmaz Os Aleph Vitsuras Yud Lamala Vav Balachson, and then the Yud, which is the name Yud Ke Vav Ke in Gematria, right by itself. So Lamata, so he said, Umeos Yud Tachtana Shal Ha'aleph. So now look at the Aleph, and there's a Yud at the bottom. Nimshach v'ne'etzlo, parts of Abba. This is where the Abba comes from. So the letter Yud itself, he says that the Aleph, he says that the Lachs, the lower one, Ubeos Yud Tachtana Shal Ha'aleph, Nimshach ne'etzlo, parts of Abba. For Ha'os Yud Hazos Na'asis Rosh Shabo, this Kalalom, and this Yud, he said it makes the head that incorporates Abba. Now the problem I'm having here, why I'm stumbling around over here, is because he said what he said in the letter Yud. Let's see, he said, I really didn't understand that 100%. He says everything depends on the. Let me go back up to the top and see if I can understand it. So, on this word Av in the left column, Zeh Hareshis Anikra Av, for who parts of Abba, Shehu Techilas Kolam Netzalim, Yadu Na'asav and Etzel Kola Partsuvish and Metachta Bekol Os, Bekol or Ein Sof Hamislavish Bo, Bekoach, excuse me, the power of the Ein Sof. So he says, Khalil B'Yud, all of this is connected in the word Yud, Hataluya B'Mazal Kadesha. Dechlal B'Os Yud, Hataluya B'Mazal HaKodesh, Shal Dikna de Erikan Pin, no problem so far, V'ku HaMazal Shal Tikun Hashmini. That's the first slip over to the other side. Shabo Nirmaz Os Aleph, because he says in the eighth Tikkun, there's a reference to the letter Aleph. Now, right now, I don't know what that reference is. So he says that was my question. So the Aleph, then he says, in this first is in the eighth mazel. There's an Aleph there in some way. There's a remez to the Aleph. He says Shabo Nirmaz Os Aleph, and the Aleph is Yud Vav Yud. So he says if you take the final Yud, that's what Abba is made out of. Okay, he's connected to the eighth mazel. Now, previously, you know that he was talking about the sixth mazel, so now he went to the eighth mazel. V'ha'os yud hazos na'asav rosh shabo niskalalo, so this becomes a head, and in that head, I'm not happy with my lineup here. Oh, man. Let me try it this way. I'm sorry about the technical thing. I'm trying to put this on a camera, so it makes me, I can't get the pages lined up so easily. Okay, so let me find out. Still not right. 1 second. Oh man, oh man. Why can't I do this? That's no problem. It's this one. Okay. Let's see. I got it now. Now let me see. Let's go up to the top of the right column that I got myself organized. I'm sorry. Begin kach, and for this reason, the fisha abba talui v'nishrash ba'os yud shel hamazel. So again, there's an aleph in that mazel. V'chein gam abba on the etzel b'menes, so therefore abba that comes out of it, hu b'sod os yud. So since abba is related to this yud, with the yud, that part of the aleph of the mazel, v'kumo kain hu os yud b'milui yud v'avdal, and as a result of that, that yud actually spreads out. It spreads out into a yavud. It's like yud vav daled. Kolol asva nachronim. So therefore the yud then spreads into new letters. Kolol osios acheru shehem, which are the vav and the daled shall milu yud vav daled. Shehem ramalzos al shar partsufi atzilus, and this is a reference to all of the other partsufim of Atzilus. So how is this letting us know that the yud itself contains all the rest of Atzilus? Ki yud stimid the kula asvan achron. So he said, va'os yud soisim b'socho gam kol shar kaf beis osius. It has that in it also all the other 22 letters. Ki kulam nechlalos bo, because all of the letters are incorporated in this yud. Kikulam nechlalos bo v'yodsos v'meno, and come out from it. Reisha v'sefer the kula. So it comes out, the os yud then is the beginning, the rosh, and the sof shall call the chatzilos, because within it everything is bundled up. Ki guf os yud hu abba. So the bottom of the body of the yud. So I guess he means if you meant from the top of it and moved to the right, all of that area would be the body of the yud. Who Abba. So he says ki guf os yud represents Abba. And then he says the v'kutz, and then you go down to the corner at the bottom, the v'kutz atachton shalom nechlalos ima, then you see that ima is incorporated in the bottom kutz of that yud. V'osios bo avdalo, then that's just Abba v'ima represented by the os yud. So he says who osios yud shall milui hayud romezes l'zer anpin. So then you have the vav and the daled represent zer anpin, v'nukva, they're the female and male. So daled is always malchus, and vav is of course zer anpin. So he said os yud b'miluo romezes l'kol partzufi achatzilud b'tekilal sachatzova. So therefore we see there's a reference here now to Atzilus in all of its parts. One moment, please. There we go. Now we're going to the river that comes out. So he said from this yud comes out a river. This river, the yud shel chochma, represents chochma, the hainu bina. So bina is the river. Ikre alma the asi, and it's also called the world coming. Nikras Olam Haba, that is coming. The Asatade Velupsik. The thing we want to know about is that the river never stops flowing. Shefa Ba, so the concept Shefa Ba is coming, Tomed, below Hepsik, without any stop. So therefore it's not called destined to come. Shemishma'uso sha'asi levo, that sometime in the future it's going to come rak b'shas godless, only when there's mochen to godless and expanded consciousness. Ela nikras olam haba, that it's talking about the world which is coming all the time. Shemash mishma'uso shachashefa ba atomid, that it never stops coming, it's continuously coming. V'hai v'zecha nachar shel shefa, so the now that we're talking about with the shefa is bina. Who iduna the tzedikaya the zakol the high alma the asi, who are Aiden. So this we're talking. This is the Aiden. Now what Aiden was previously chachma. Am I getting mixed up? He said who are Aiden v'ha'oneg. It's two things. It's the Aiden. It's a celebration v'ha'oneg shal tzedikim sheyizku the zecha olam haba, that are able to I guess receive, or to what's the right word, to be worthy of this coming olam coming at him. The Ashke Tader of the Gensa. So this river, which is Bina, Mashke Tamed Lagan Elyon, is continuously watering the upper garden. Who's the upper garden? Who's their anpin? Below psik, be'enu paisik la'oida v'ravida be'ez churban beis hamikdash. Even at that time, it never stops flowing. Allah Kasev, in regards to that, it says Al Zech Anacha Kasev, Ukamotsim Mahim Asher Balacha Yechaz Vacha V'Meimav. It brings out water that the water are what's Yechazvo? It's never lying. He says, what does that mean? Shuhu Kamak, or it's like a fountain. Of water of living, it's like a fountain of living waters. Mayim Chaim She'edach B'Pasach, but it says Mayim the oil, it never stops giving its water. The Gemo came Kabina, so the same thing. The Vukatam Bechaberina Chochma, which is constantly clinging, or what is it, in oneness with Abba. Bekotz Hatachton Shal Yud, and what is that? Because she represents that little dip at the bottom of the Yud. The tip at the bottom of the yud, the Einan Nipsak Mikor Makor Shefa L'Oilim. So the fountain of the Shefa never stops pouring out. The Hachu Alma the Asi. So this world that is coming, he says, where is it? V'osa Olam Haba Shuku Bina. So that world which is constantly coming at us, Ibari B'Yud, is all created by this letter Yud. Nivras v'nechlalos ba'oz yud shal chachma ki chabina kolula b'kutz atachdon shal oz yud. In other words, it's a part of the yud, which is chachma. It's really a part of it. It's the bottom of it. Hadad d'chsev. This word of Ezekiel shakaso. V'nacha yotze me'eden. The water. The river flows out from Eden. The Ashkos is a gan. Previously said the gan refers in this case to Zer Anpin, where you see a Zer Anpin is becoming more of a female, a recipient of the Shefa. Shuhu bina yotze b'nimshach me'eden shuhu chachma behind mekutz atachton shel ha'os yud. So it all comes out from there. So he said, now he comes and he says, Yud Kalila Tren Asban Vav Dalet. So let's go back to the concept of the Yud Vav Dalet. Va'oz Yud Shel Chachma Kashehi B'Malua. When it's spelled out like this in Yud Vav Dalet. Kalu Ba'od Ba'beis Osius Vav and Dalet. Ba'agadita, so in the Gada debate, Rabbi Yebesaba, so we're back to Rabbi Yebesaba again. Taninan, we learn like this. If a Sefer Hagadita Chashav Rabbi Yebesaba, he says, Lamado, Shoel, and he asks like this, Amai Vav Dalet Kalila B'Yud. Why did those two letters get incorporated into a Yud? Lama Osius Yud Kalula B'Milui Os Yud Umeshiv. So why is it written out in a Milui form? El the Tia de Ginsadol. El the Tia, the planting, the seedling, Zer Shalagan of the garden, Shuhu Zer Anpin, Ikri Vav. So he says in the Tia, the plant, that which is, planted into it. Hanikro Vav Keneged Os Vav Shal Shem Havaya. So it's really about that name Vav on the name Havaya. V'zecha Vihi Os Vav Shal Os Yis Vav Dalet. Shal Milui Os Yud. So we understand that Vav refers to Zer Anpin. Is Ginsa Achra, but there's also another garden. Yesh Gan Acher Shuhu HaMalchus. Shagam Ki Nikras B'Shem Gan, because of course she's also called a garden. Dihi Dalet, and she represents the Dalet. Shehi Os Dalet Shal Milui Vav Dalet. Umachari Vav Isht Ashtakia Dalet. Imaha Os Vav Shal Zer Anpin, for that Vav is Zer Anpin. Nashkis V'Shfals Dalet Shehi HaMalchus. This is where you see the watering takes place. Of Nashkis, she the shpaz and pours out this dalet shu malch into dalet, I guess into the dalet which is malchus. Ki ein ha malchus mekabel shefa elyon. Malchus only receives her shefa ela yedezer anpin. V'atach yivar ketzad nirmaz called zeb b'pasuk. Now we want to see how we understand all of this from a pasuk. Behind the Raza says that there's a secret over here, and he says, "But Nacha Yotze Me'Eden." That's our pasuk. That there's a river that comes out of a place called Eden. The Hashkot has a gan in order to be able to water the garden. The Mishan Yefared, and from there, from that garden, it splits into V'hoyla Arba Roshim, it splits into 4 different heads. I guess it means the beginnings of 4 different rivers. V'shoil, my Aden, so you use this word Aden. There's a Nar that comes out of this place called Aden. Mihu Zeha Aden, the Meshiv Chachma Law, it refers to Chachma, which is the goof of the Yud. Hu Chachma El Yod, the Haina Abba. V'da Yud, V'zeh HaOs Yud Shel Shem Havaya. Umemana Yotzeh HaNachar Shuhu Bina, from it comes out the river, which is Bina. Lahashko says the Gan. What's the Gan? He said, V'nemed the Ozvav. So you have now the Yud being able to be mashpia to the letter Vav. Zehu Os Yud Shel Milui Os Yud. So this is the Vav, excuse me, Os Vav of the Milui Yud Vav Dalet. So, which would be, I guess, maybe Vav Dalet. Shuhu Zer Anpen. Misham Yefarin, in there, it starts to split. That is the Nahar. And it comes out into 10 beginnings of new rivers. And for 4 different portions. Dohu Dalet, that's the concept of the Dalet. He says, Shehi HaMalchus, which is Malchus. Because now he gave us a definition here, or I guess. He says there are 4 different campments of the Shechina that are represented by it. So it comes out in this pasuk. Klulim called Partzufi Atzilus. So therefore we see that this pasuk is really talking about Atzilus and all of the Partzufim. Ki Eden, what's Eden? So he says, Hu Chachma, V'na'ir Hu Bina. The Gan, Hu Zer Anpen, and the garden is Zer Anpen, V'arba Roshim, that's Malchus, sign of Malchus. Messiah V'kulu Kola B'Yud, and all of this you can find incorporated in one letter, which is the letter Yud. So he said, Ba'os Yud, let me say Yud. V'chakol Kolula Ba'os Yud shall parts of Abba. He Os Yud Peshuta, he Abba. The simple Yud is Abba himself. V'chakol, the tip and the bottom of Tachton shall Yud, that's Ima. V'os Vav, that comes after that, what part of the Milui, HaMilui, he Zer Anpen, V'os Dalet shall HaMilui, he HaMalchus represents Malchus, you see it all there. Again, Kacha, for this reason, so now we see that the Os Yud of Chachma has everything in it. Shal Chachma, Ikre Av Lakula, so it's called the ultimate father. I guess he's the father of everything. Nikra Chachma Av, so that's the reason why he's called by the name Father. They'll call the Partzufim of all of the other Partzufim. He says, Av La'avahan. The Nikra Av La'avo, so he's the father of fathers. The Haino Av L'Sphira Shel Zer Anpen HaNikrayim Avo. So this means that he's the father. He's the incipient of the parts of Zer Anpen HaNikrayim Avos, which is called by the name of the fathers, because you have the Chagat, you have Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov there. Mimena Mispasha Shlosha Mochim Chachma Bin Das Zer Anpen, because from Ava comes out all of the 3 mochim that come into Zer Anpen. And through these mochim, he becomes therefore the father, or the incipient, the progenitor of the spheres of Zer Anpen, Hanekrayim Avos, who are called by that name Avos. They are the fathers. This is the beginning of the father. Sherusa the Kula, it's the beginning of everything. It's the beginning of everything that is going to distance itself out away from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Because through it you have the going out and the positioning of all the partzufim shebatachta that are going down and going away. The koch or Ein Sof Hamislavish bo, and this all I guess he's saying the making of the system of these partzufim is all as a result of the energy coming from the Ein Sof. Base of the kula al yada nivna kala ola b'chatzilus anikra bias. So he says that therefore through this he becomes the house of everything. The house means the container of everything. The tzivka Moshe Kasav b'chochma yibone bias. With chochma you can build a house. A perusha b'spheres a chochma, with that one sphera. Shuhu Abba. Nibna kala oila b'chatzilus and nikra bias. So now we have a definition that Tzilus is called bias. So, in other words, it's the first, what would you say, first parts of that is able, that holds the light of the Ein Sof, or starts to be able to manage the tikkun of the light of the Ein Sof. And then it comes to, it says like this, and we have the kula b'chachma. Everything is really made out of this chochma, which is this os yud, the pirusho, shekala partzufim, and it wants to say like this, that all the partzufim, na'asav and na'atzlo, all of them are made, all of them distance out, one from the next, yidecha b'chochma through chochma. Shuhu Abba b'koich or Ein Sof b'slavish bo, which is Abba, who has the power of the Ein Sof within him. Ba'asrei Abba kashuhu b'makom levada, when he's there in that place by himself, below Ima. Now exactly how that takes place, I don't know. But Abba is by himself. He says lo izgali, he's not revealed. Non izgala rosa. So if there was, what he's really saying, if there was no Ima, you would never know there was an Abba. Below Isya, then, and as a result of that is not known. Also, there's no way to know what it is that he's doing, because basically it's hidden. Because it's more hidden than everything else below it. And once it makes a yichud, so when they become into oneness, Isra is be'ima. Oz nirmaz Abba be'ima, then there's an impression of Abba in Ima. That's my translation. But he says there's a reference to Abba now in manifest in Ima. Ba'oz yud shel mila bina. And that, where do you find that? In the word bina itself, you have the letter yud. Ki oz naida v'nika pukulosov ayida Ima, because then's where you can really recognize his deeds, what he's actually doing. That is, Polosov means there's a lot to how it is he acts. Al Yedei Ima, but you can only see that through Ima. Begin Kacha, for this reason, She'ima Megala Ogos Abba, but what she's doing is she's revealing his life. Ima Klala the Kula, so therefore she has within herself the same thing. She has everything within her. And that's all of Abba. So since Abba is impressing on Ima, and they're really joining together to one thing, so whatever he had, she has. Ba Isyada, so from her, ki al yada, through Bina, Nika v'nayda kol oris Abba, then you see all the lights of Abba. Ba Isramiz, and in that, let me move this over, Nirmaz ba kol partzufi atzilus, so therefore in Ima also all the partzufim are there. And he says, ki bina, heim osios ben yak. Shehem yud ke Abba ve'ima, the yud ke represents Abba ve'ima, ben, and then you have the son, who zer anpin, im hanukva halulu imo, because the nukva of zer anpin, in other words, Malchus, is incorporated in zer anpin, it's a part of zer anpin. Alam avsha raman, the she'ima kololu called the partzufi atzilus, and even though we said that she has all the partzufi atzilus, they become magom in any case. Sherutza v'siyuma the kula, haschala v'chasiyim shall call partzufi atzilus eine be'ima, but the beginning and the end of all the partzufi, in other words, the ultimate beginning and the beginning of, how do you say this, and the point that brings the end, which would be ultimately Malchus, he says that's not in Ima, that's in Abba. Chochma Ikri, that part that has the beginnings and the end in it is the really ultimate beginnings, is Abba. There's a Ella Bepartza Nikra Chochma, Shu Abba. That's really where everything starts. The Beit Salsim Kula, because in it, he said, Chochma, Salsim V'Nichlau, Kala Chatzilus, all the Chatzilus is incorporated inside of Chochma. And that's important that he wants to say from the beginning, because the beginning of this is not Bina, even though there could be manifest in Bina, but the beginning of it is only Abba, and until the end also is the germination, or the germs, or what is the right word, of the inseminating part that's in Abba is hidden back up in there, but that's where it starts. Ki Abba hu his haschala shal atzilus, because haschala, he is the beginning of Atzilus. V'gam sasim bo hasof shal Atzilus, and also closed up inside of Abba is the end of Atzilus. Shuhu hamalchus. It has to be unraveled, so to speak. Vihi nermezes ba'os dalad shel milui ha'os yud vav dalad. The Abba, which is the dalad, which is of course malchus, which is the end. So now he comes. Let me see. I can't quite get the focus here. He says kala the kula. So the basic general idea klal ha'olach and bekol masha shagalino besodet partzufi abba ve'ima. So he says the general rule of everything that we've gotten out of this, who Shema Kadisha, the holy name, Zeh Arba Osil Shel Yudke Vavke HaKadosh. Ki ad hashta, until this time, Remezna ad ata rak Ramazdecha b'partzuf Abba ve'ima. So up at this time, I've only been talking about the partzufim of Abba ve'ima, v'lo hamena kol ilin yomim. V'lo bi'arnos sodas partzufi Abba ve'ima hetiv. I really didn't explain it completely. Kol eloch hayamim, all of these days, ad ata. Now, I don't know what he means by all of these days. Maybe you're going to tell me. V'lechein gan lo bi'arti b'feirush inyan shtei osius rishonos yod and k. So I guess he's saying that all the time that we've been learning over here in the Idra, or together, I guess, in the yeshiva, in our yeshiva, he says, I really didn't get into Beferish Inyan really as well as I could. The Inyan Shtei Osius Rishonos Yud and K Shel Shem Havaya Shehem Romazes Abba Ve'ima, which really represent Abba Ve'ima. For Idnim is Galfin Stisitrin. But now there's a carving out of their sides. What if Abba Ata? The Idra Zuta, but now that we come over here to the Idra Zuta, but now it's here. In other words, up until the Idra Zuta, all the learning that we're doing, I never really got around to explaining the details of Abba ve'ima. V'lechem gan nizgala b'shleimos sod kol arba osios shehem chavaya hakadosh. So then also, I'm going to reveal here the complete idea of the 4 letters of the name Havaya, HaKadosh, the Haidach of Yud, Kol B'chai Chochma, so we understand that the Yud really incorporates the Chochma within it, Ha'oz Yud Shel Shem Havaya, Nechlala Bezech HaB'Chochma Shu Abba, it's inside of that. The Hey Daw, this Hey, let me get this lined up, is Ima. Hos Hey Shel Shem Havaya is Ima v'chakurena v'chashem b'shem Bina. We call her Bina. V'osias Vav and K Shel Shem Havaya Hem Elon Train Benin. These are the 2 children. Elach Shnei Banim Hem Zer Anpin, which is the Os Vav who Zer Anpin. And as we had said before, the Os Hey He Nukva. This is the Nukva, the Misatran Be'ima that is crowned in Ima. Shemisatran min amochim anoisnim lechem ayedei Ima. Okay, yeah, Kol Tuv, we'll see you next time.